talk about WNBA free agency. So, Steve, we had the qualifying offers and the core things go out on Monday. The negotiation period started on Wednesday. I think contracts can officially be signed heading into the weekend. So we're going to get more news trickling in. But let's react to some stuff that we know so far. Chief among it right now, because we talked about the Angel Reese trade earlier this week. So check out our video on that if you missed our analysis there. Another trade that seems to be poised to go through. Now, has not been finalized, cannot be finalized until the weekend. We will see if there are any picks or anything else that's going to be added. But in terms of the foundation of the trade, per Annie Costabile, formerly of Front Office Sports, she announced her own free agency, but I think we're going to get some news on where she's going soon. So excited about that. Rickea Jackson, you are going to be a Chicago. Ariel Atkins, you are going to be a member of the Los Angeles Sparks. And so, again, we will see if there are going to be any kind of future pick equity added in this deal when we get details over the weekend. But right now, an Ariel Atkins-Rickea Jackson swap in principle. I want to get your thoughts on that, Steve, naturally. But before we get there, how have you kind of soaked in the early portion of free agency in this condensed offseason so
far? For me, I think everyone needs to just slow down a little bit. Have you considered this is absolutely not a regular offseason? We have a massive amount of free agents, right? We have a lot of teams with not just cap space, but a type of cap space they have never had before. We have raises in pay that are well-deserved, but will happen. And now we have to understand who is going to look to get the big money. Am I willing to, quote unquote, sacrifice to play with this team and still get paid a certain amount of money? The dominoes are going to fall, folks. I'm very curious about how these rosters get constructed. How many players want to take short-term deals and roll the dice to compete, to try and win, and then put myself right back in this pot to maybe earn more? How many players are going to get long-term deals where we're building blocks? What does this look like? Because, again, the W is a extremely competitive league. You go back to last year, Nekias, right? How many teams at the start of the season felt like this isn't our year? I have two.
Yeah. Everybody else kind of came in with we can make a.
I had Connecticut and I had Washington where they were like, hey, this may not be our bag this year. But if Dallas was like, well, we got Paige Beckers, we can get this done. The Sparks got Kelsey Plum. The Sky added Ariel Atkins to Angel Reese. Like there are attempts that will be made in this league, especially as it continues to expand, to put a footprint down. The Golden State Valkyries said, hey, actually, we've built something and we're going to get this done. And so guess what they laid a blueprint for? The fire and the tempo, saying, you know what? If we piece this together the right way, we can compete. There's a lot of moving pieces here. And there's not a lot of players or teams that have leverage. And so you're going to get information when leverage arrives and knocks on the door, because everyone has options. The teams have plans A through T at this point, considering the amount of players that are potentially available, right? And if you're a player, I got these options to get everything going. So it's like, you got to wait to see which domino falls, which one hits next, how's this go? And then the order of operations are important. Now, to this trade, right? The Sparks have very clearly said, we would like to turn this around. They got Kelsey Plum, and they said, nope, it's time for us to be extremely serious about this. Now, in a vacuum, Rickea Jackson, I think, was very important for them last year. You can question the fit if you have two bigs plus Rickea at the 3. Is Rickea better at the 4? What's the shooting look like? That gets interesting. But Rickea was developing into a point where, hey, who's going to guard her to a degree? Because Rickea Jackson can eliminate some matchups, get some post-ups, get some isolations, and make things hard. If you're the Chicago Sky, and I want to circle back to some of your thoughts, because I remember you were like, hey, I'm not going to be kind to the Sky in the postseason. And now we're like, the Sky offseason eye emoji with the monocle. And I'm like, interesting. But if I'm Chicago, do we understand potentially the process of losing a young star in Angel Reese, while in our back pocket, we're getting what we think is a young star in Rickea Jackson that may alter our fit around our other young star, Camila Cardoso. And can we now build this in a little bit of a different way? I just think the concept is interesting as far as how these teams believe they can achieve the next step.
Mm-hmm. Where to begin? So I think on the Spark side of this, I echo your sentiments. It has been very clear, stemming from the Kelsey Plum trade into this trade now, like we are not looking to slow play this. We are not looking to be patient. I remember when we had initial conversation surrounding the Kelsey Plum trade to the Sparks, where I was a little bit more like, ooh, do you really want to give up a top 2 pick to do this when you are not really in position to just flat out contend right now? Like adding KP felt like a move because she's an all W talent, a champion, etc. Like this is a final piece type move to me, not necessarily what it was for them. And you noted, I don't know if teams can afford to be patient in the same way with the way that the league is building, with the way that you can turn things around more quickly, the arms race that we're seeing with building facilities and being able to pitch folks and like entering the CBA and this massive free agency. You want to make sure that you have stuff in your organization that you can pitch to people to help accelerate your build, et cetera. But like, okay, like I understand the logic. And so now they are continuing to build or stay on this road. You add Ariel Atkins into the mix. The logic holds for me. And I think if you are building out around Kelsey Plum, and we're going to get to the big signing that the Los Angeles Sparks are bringing back into the fold in a little bit, Ariel Atkins makes sense as someone that can handle some secondary playmaking ability, that can knock down shots, doesn't need the ball to be effective. And for a Sparks defense that had its moments of perking up, particularly in the second half of the season, it was not a very good defense overall. Ariel Atkins, who is not tasked with being your de facto number one optionally or primary ball handler, can return to, if not all defense levels, at least close enough to where this is a very clear upgrade to anything that we have in the building right now. So I think the on-court fit, obviously pending how else the Sparks plan to build this roster out, it makes a lot of sense. It makes sense for their timeline. It makes sense for like the stars they have in the building. It's cool. You are really running the risk of accelerating this because you started with number 2 pick plus Nekias Jackson plus Cam Brink that flows into Nekias Jackson and Cam Brink. It is now just Cam Brink. And like, depending on how you feel about Sarah Ashley Barker, obviously was not protected in the expansion draft. She's gone too. So like, it is now just Cam and Sanaya Fagan. And so we'll see what kind of role that she has with them. But it's like, hey man, like if you are pushing into this degree, and I understand the logic behind it, and I understand the Ariel Atkins fit, if you are pushing into this degree, you have to be successful to an extent. Because if we enter this next season and the Sparks are like 7th, then it's like, hey, what have we actually built here? And what did we punt on in the pursuit of building in this way?
I think for one in the W, you got to respect the attempts that teams make to say, hey, I think this will work. Let's world out. And win or lose, we tried something. Like, I think sometimes we get so built into quote unquote cap space or quote unquote draft capital, and we think that we can build in a linear fashion, which it has its value. But a lot of teams will be like, you know what, swing the bat, let's see if we get a home run. I think with Ariel Atkins in Los Angeles, it's a wild dynamic to a degree because on one hand, you are willing to roll the dice on the same bet the Sky made last year. But at the same time, Ariel Atkins next to Kelsey Plum, next to Cam Brink, next to mystery player we'll talk about here shortly. Boy, that's a fit as far as I can play on ball, I can play off ball, I can help you with your lineup versatility, I can defend, I can shoot from 3, I can create plays. And so you have a player that may feel like a more natural fit versus a young player in Nekias Jackson who's got a boatload of potential and was impactful for you. And it runs counter to how teams kind of run things where it's like young player can get better. Let's scale this up. Well, we don't have to pigeonhole what Nekias does and make sure that she's good or wait for the 3-point shot to hit or try and, open up minutes at the 4. It gets interesting as far as like trying to build a roster conceptually. And I think like it's a massive bet on how much they love Ariel Atkins, who's a very good player. Like I feel like that Sky season shouldn't erase how impactful Ariel Atkins can be. This is like a all-star caliber player that we've seen produce at a high level for many years. But Rickea Jackson has the ability to, well, if this 3-point shot starts to go down and certain types of players can't guard her, that's a whole problem. And so you see just two type of dynamics opposing each other to a degree. Because I'm Chicago, absolutely. Give me Rickea Jackson and let's see what we can do going forward. If I'm the Sparks, love Rickea, but give me Ariel Atkins into this vacuum that we're building. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
No, it's interesting indeed. And I think it's important to index, as you mentioned, the Sparks kind of making a similar bet to the Sky did. Worth emphasizing, like, hey, we are making the veteran swing while we already have a star in Kelsey Plum in the building. As opposed to the Sky, who Angel Reese was your best player. Was she, not an all W player, at least not yet. And so that's where, we talked about it in real time. I was like, I understand wanting to speed this up. I am not giving up number 3 pick to do this unless I am getting like legitimate star. So you have that in. And so like the context being slightly different is where it makes more sense from a fit perspective. Like we already got a baked in number 1 in Kelsey Plum. Now I was anticipating we're going to have Kelsey Plum and De'Erica Hamby that you're adding to this. They have found a different 4. It would appear. So we will see what else happens on that front. Yeah, buddy. But like either way, you're still looking at star guard, star forward. Now we can add Ariel into this to have like this real spine of 1, 2, or 2, 3 plus a 4. We have that baked in. As we shift to the Sky portion of this, I am fascinated by this because you make the Ariel Atkins trade, and I was like, that feels steep, but whatever. You core Ariel Atkins because I'm not making that trade and then just letting her walk for nothing. And now it is looking like it is going to be a sign and trade for Ariel Atkins, which if you're a cord and you sign with that team, like you can get up to a 1-year deal worth of Supermax. If you were signed and traded, you are capped at the regular max, a little bit over 1.1 mil. And so this being the sign trade to the Sparks means that this is going to be like pretty much at $1 million or lower, depending on what they negotiate with Ariel. So like salary wise might not be as steep for the Sparks. But turning that into interesting young player in Rickea Jackson, who is also just on a rookie scale contract. It's where like, okay, cool. We have turned veteran into younger player with more upside, with more wiggle room to make more swings in free agency. And I think Chicago has some fun stuff coming. So we'll see. We'll leave that there. And it's like, okay, this is how you bounce back with some of the asset management or mismanagement that we've seen. As you alluded to with me, where I was like, I'm not going to be very kind to the Sky on the podcast. I'm kind of looking at the totality of this with Marina trade into Ariel trade into Angel trade in which you only got 2 first. I feel better you have the Rickea move in back pocket, but they still very much have work to do. And even as I kind of project what this can look like, as much as I can anyway, because they still have to fill out the roster, I am intrigued by Rickea plus Camilla and what that could be offensively. I am a little concerned about what Rickea plus Camilla offensively right now. This is where I want to see how they round out the rest of the roster, what their overall scheme is going to be, things like that. The basketball has to be played. But I'm just like, okay, it's a talent play, it's an upside play. There are some fit questions that need to be answered here. And some more work needs to be done overall. But I think just in general, Rickea is such a fascinating offensive player. With, as you mentioned, the way she can drive, the way that she can hunt mismatches. Like, if you're able to bottle up the second half that we saw from Rickea Jackson, to where she's getting some of these post touches sprinkled in, she's more comfortable taking threes off the bounce, Steve, per second spectrum, shot 35.5% on off the dribble threes last season. I was like, hey, wait a minute. If the 3-point shot is not even elite, if it is just a compliment to what she can do inside the arc and what that can mean for some of the mismatch hunting. And I said this on a thread on Twitter, people were asking me about it. I'm intrigued by Rickea being able to score all over the board. Camila Cardoso being able to be having her passing ability tapped into a little bit more, using her above the break as kind of a passing hub. The screening has to be better, but the passing ability is there. We can invert the floor and let Rickea go to work. She can take some of the scoring load off of Camila to where you can allow her to develop more as a post threat, as a finisher. Because like that's kind of the quiet thing with Camila right now. She has the size and the touch. The footwork and the fluidity on some of these interior touches has to get better. And so now if you got Rickea to take some of that pressure off, and now you're just cleaning stuff up or just getting some late duck ins and drawing fouls. It was like a much easier context for her to kind of grow. So I'm fascinated. I want to see what else Chicago does. For me, like as of recording, I like this a little bit more for the Sparks than I do for the Sky. But that again is pending on what else the Sky do to round this out.
I mean, just conceptually, without knowing how the entire roster will be built out. And again, we got to wait for
Mhm,
dominoes to fall, but I like it for both sides to a degree. We talked about the Sparks
mhm.
portion, but I think for the Sky, the name of the game is freedom to a degree and a context that fits people differently. And so if I'm having Camila Cardoso, you can now do all the five things to a degree, in theory, depending on
Mhm.
who they have. But
It's
like we're
hers.
not tied, to we have two bigs. We're gonna have to try and figure no. You do what you do. And you now add a young player in Nekias Jackson, you have the freedom, you do what you do. So I think that's a win for Chicago as far as, okay, are we betting on being able to unlock these two young players in a different way? And if I'm the Sparks, are we able to kind of just build a context that we have a lot of talent and you got to deal with us? Because
Mhm.
they're really trying to shake things up, guys.
Yes, they are. And speaking of shakeup, Steve, we naturally had a spotlight on the Seattle Storm and what this offseason was going to be for them. Heading into the expansion draft, like, ooh, are they doing the shenanigans with Nneka where you don't have to protect her because she's not core eligible, et cetera, and then we can protect some other players? Are we protecting Brittany Sykes versus Ezzy Matbagor? What are we going to do with Gabby Williams? What's going on with Skylar Dick? Like a whole lot of stuff. The one thing that we know right now is that Nneka Ogwumike is not going to be there because she is going home. She's going home. Tell the WNBA world that she's going home. Back to the Los Angeles Sparks is Nneka Ogwumike, as announced by her sister, Shanae Ogwumike. Can't get much better than that in terms of sourcing goes. But Nneka's back with the Sparks. And so now you're looking at a star level duo in Kelsey Plum and Nneka Ogwumike, plus what Ariel Atkins can slide in, how she can slide in as again secondary creator, shooter, strong defender, etc. That is a fascinating big three in Los Angeles, but it also sparks bigger questions for me. As you have Kelsey Plum and Ariel Atkins in the backcourt, is that just your starting backcourt, or do you want another point guard next to Kelsey Plum? Because if you remember during that second half run for the Sparks last season, a lot of that was Julie Alamon at point guard, shifting KP off ball, and like she was just a plus minus monster for the Sparks. Alamon was no longer there. Do you want another point guard next to KP, whether to start or just to kind of slide into those lineups? And that naturally slides everyone down a peg. But now with Nneka being there, and we're also obviously going to get into like how good she is, etc. What does that mean for the rest of the front court free agents? Because like I already had some doubts about Azrae Stevens returning to the Sparks in light of wanting to turn things over to Cam Ring, etc. If Nneka is there, I find it hard to believe that De'Arica Hamby is also going to be there. And De'Arica Hamby coming off an all-star / fringe all-W season in her own right. I am fascinated to see what happens with those two over the next few days. But we'll stick with Nneka for now. Steve, how do you feel about the Nneka fit in Los Angeles?
Well, we've seen what Nneka brings to the Sparks over the years, and they pivoted, and now Nneka's back with what they've rebuilt. Hey, we got Kelsey Plum, we got Cam Brink, we potentially have Ariel Atkins. It gets very interesting, and I think a lot of times for a team, you have a skill set or you have a performance, and it's like, okay, this is really good for us as a base. What if we pivot and add more to it or get a different player? And so, if you're talking about what De'Arica did for the Sparks and what Azrae Stevens did for the Sparks, you had double big lineups that worked. You had people that could scale up to the five. But if now we're now bringing back Nneka Ogwumike into a context he's very familiar with, and the ability to just punish teams offensively, to be active defensively, it raises your level to a degree. So I think for the
Mhm.
Sparks, that's where you understand why we would try and get Ariel Atkins, because we have the chance to get Nneka, and if we
Mhm.
can tie two things together, we're a different team. And like that's where it's like I understand we're wanting to run and sprint and understand teams are changing and shifting in real time. And a lot of these moves are complementary to each other to a degree. But I think, Nneka and Cam Brink defensively together.
Yes.
What would you like to do? What
Ooh-wee.
would you like to do with that? Like, that's not easy to deal with, and that insulates Kelsey Plum. And then if you add Ariel Atkins to that, we got perimeter defense, we got bigs. If we can bring Ray Burrell back, we have things that we can do to elevate what we built on last year. So I think that's where you have the veteran presence of Nneka, who we know can contribute and make teams pay on both ends of the floor. And for the Sparks, you have to look at that and be like, yeah, we're knocking on some doors this year. Last year was cool, but we need to get it up.
It's time to get even better. I wanted to start with the defense, so I'm glad that you eventually flowed into that, because Nneka plus Cam Brink is such a fun pairing. So one, quick salute to just saying, like, I am always going to have a high level rim protector next to me. Thank you. When I go to Seattle, hey, that is Ezzy Badmagor. We had Balloon Gate in Minnesota that could have been, Fee when she's healthy. Alana Smith when she comes back, but rumors that Alana Smith's going to be elsewhere, so we'll get there. We'll get to the rumor section. Back in LA, I got Cam Brink. I'm cool. I am going to be a 4, and I can slide down to the 5 in some lineups. But I got some shot blocking next to me. That is self-preservation. That's understanding the assignment. So that's fire. But I'm excited about that. And I think the overall infrastructure point is a very important one. Because I think if you get more per possession consistency from Ray Burrell, like, she obviously has the tools to be a very good on-ball defender. We just talked about what Ariel Atkins can do defensively, and her off-ball work in particular is very good. Cam Brink plus Nneka, like, regardless of how you feel about Kelsey Plum defensively, if you think she is bad defensively, I do not. But if you think she's bad defensively, that should be 4 positives around her that you can insulate her with. When you factor in, like, KP does not mind extending ball pressure, and, like, you're telling her, hey, we're keeping these pick and rolls down the sideline, like, she can very well do that. She's willing to take charges, etc. So, like, she also brings her own value. I just appreciate the Sparks overall just being like, hey, so what we were last year is never going to happen again defensively. We are not going to be this defensively. And, like, I think as I was thinking through, like, the Nneka versus the Erica stuff, that's the biggest difference between the two. Because De'Erica felt like she finished everything last year. She was incredibly good. But, like, De'Erica as a defender versus Nneka as a defender, like, that, there is a gap between the two, with all due respect. And so, like, if you're able to find more balance holistically with this group, you feel better about the Sparks winning games based on that. You just have more wiggle room. You have a higher floor, because we feel like we are going to have a level of chaos defensively, especially if it's still going to be, as we saw in Seattle, Nneka at the level of hedging out and just bothering folks. If she gets to do that while Cam Brink can mix that in, or mix in some late switches, or just kind of roam, ooh boy, you get navigators in front of those two, ooh boy. And then offensively, Nneka's still a very profound screening threat, pick or pop threat, or pick and roll or pick and pop threat. Can obviously post up. I keep an eye on, like, what the aggression is going to be for her at times. Like, you have the capability of scoring 25 whenever you want to. Sometimes she just didn't seem like she wants to. Playing alongside Kelsey Plum, I don't think she's going to feel that same pressure to get buckets all the time. This can very much be KP does not have it on this night, or KP is seeing 2 on the ball tonight. It is my turn to score 23 points on 70% shooting. And so I love this context for her. And, like, obviously the backdrop of her returning to where she spent the first, 12 seasons of her career, won her MVP, won a championship, all the things. Like, that also adds a level of fun to the signing, but just from an on-court fit, it just makes sense for both sides. Which again brings me to, where's the Erica going? Where's Azare going? For Seattle, Skylar Diggins has been linked to a couple of teams that are not the Seattle Storm. Where is Skylar Diggins going? Hey, man, I feel like we're going to get some really interesting unrestricted free agent decisions over the next few days, if not the next few hours, if not the next few
I'm
minutes. So I am
I'm
fascinated by the rumor.
I'm telling you, sit and let the dominoes fall. Let these teams piece these things together. What do we have next, Nekias?
Oh, dear. Actually, can I toss you a quick free throw before we get to the next trade?
Absolutely.
What do you think is the best spot for Skylar Diggins if she does not return to Seattle?
I would probably counter with, is there a bad spot for Skylar Diggins? I think with her skill set and her competitive nature and what she can bring to a team on both ends of the floor, is there a place where Skylar Diggins doesn't fit? That's where it gets interesting to me because, okay, do I elevate, quote unquote, the Chicago Sky? Do I join a different team to bring what I do to what you've already done? Again, this is where construction gets interesting because what does a player want to do? What is a team trying to accomplish? I don't know if there's anywhere in this league that Skylar doesn't fit outside of maybe a couple of the teams that are missing some pieces to elevate. But even then, do we put Skylar in a position where she can elevate a base? I don't know that Skylar would want to do that at this stage. But at the same time, she's got the talent level to produce anywhere she goes.
Yeah, I think on court fit, to your point, she could fit just about anywhere. I'm just like, what's the ideal landing spot here? Because like my first thought was always like, hey, Minnesota, if we want to upgrade the point guard spot, where you have been so close to winning a championship, the Skylar take us over the edge. As you mentioned, like she's been linked to Chicago, so we'll see if that is a thing that happens. Which, oh boy, fascinating group if she ends up going to Chicago. But we will see what happens there. The other trade that we have right now, more of a cap clearing move, but still intriguing for me. The Connecticut Sun and the Dallas Wings agreeing to a deal. The Sun receiving Diamond Miller, who was a member of the Dallas Wings via the DJ Carrington trade that happened a bit of last season, and Ryan Marshall coming to the Dallas Wings. And I say salary clearing because Ryan Marshall on rookie scale contract, unprotected deal. So the Wings could technically waive Ryan Marshall and just get immediate salary relief. And if that is a move that comes through the pipeline soon, what does that indicate about what Dallas wants to do in free agency? What kind of swings could we see them make and how they want to add around Paige Beckers? I am fascinated with the Dallas of it all. I guess related to Dallas, shout out Christina Williams, who reported Awak Kuir coming back to the Dallas Wings, coming back to the W. So excited to see how she slots in, and just in general with the Wings, like how any of the big moves do or do not influence what they're actually going to do on Monday's draft. So we'll see what happens on that front. But I think the Ryan Marshall portion is easier to talk about. But like, how do you feel about Diamond Miller in Connecticut? Do you like the swing there from the Sun?
Yes, I'm intrigued. I'm very interested. Let's see if Diamond Miller can really find home, right? I think the Minnesota Lynx being like, Diamond Miller, you were excellent, come with us, and then their whole context changing immediately put Diamond Miller in a tough spot as far as, hey, philosophically, we've changed a whole lot of what we do, and we're going to have skill and size and shooting on the court at all times. So it's not necessarily going to be like you need to fit into a vacuum more as opposed to do what you do. We saw the trade. We saw flashes of Diamond Miller producing in Dallas. Can this be the context to where Diamond Miller can just kind of reset in Connecticut, going into Houston, and show what she can do on both ends of the floor and just have the ability and the context to open things up? And that's where it gets interesting because if you're Connecticut, right, we lost Marina Mabry. We're in on youth. We have young players. We have cost control to a degree. We're building this up. But if we now have comfort with our young bigs and we add a young piece in Diamond Miller, so I understand, the rookie scale contract scales up, but if we are now able to kind of have this type of player producing at this type of level, we feel good about what we can build and what we could present to free agents. To the earlier point we talked about, we've got to build something up to be able to knock on doors and be like, would you like to join what we've done? And so I think it's an opportunity for Connecticut to have a young player. It's an opportunity for Diamond Miller to just kind of be like, okay, I'm going to have a chance to play in a way that maybe I haven't. Like even with the Dallas trade, it's a mid-season trade. So we've already got stuff that we're doing, and we have Paige Beckers, and we have Enrique. So you again have to fit into a context. Is this now a spot where Diamond Miller can now showcase the driving ability? Can she grow defensively? Can she produce at the level that we've seen her do before in a place that feels like home? Fit, context, opportunity, so important in basketball. So we'll see if that's what occurs for Diamond. But I think if you're Dallas, it's like, we got something up our sleeve. in case we don't, like, we got a very good big, but like we saved some money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think to the portion, I'm intrigued to see like how Connecticut chooses to deploy her. I think like collective athleticism of Layla Lacan, Sanaya Rivers, Diamond Miller intrigues me. The collective shooting between those three gives me some pause. So like I don't know how often we see those three on the floor together. But I think for me, because you've hit on most of the major points, I'm not gonna hang here too long. One, I just want Diamond Miller to have a healthy campaign heading into the season. As simple and reductive as that may be, I just want her to get through the full 40 or 44, etc. Beyond that, how many advantages can she create as a driver? How many opportunities will she have to attack tilted defenses within what Connecticut wants to do offensively? And even to the defensive portion, like it's going to be attentiveness more for me than anything, particularly off the ball. But like on ball, like she has the traits to be a good defender. We've seen flashes of good on ball defense, versatile defense. Connecticut was quietly one of the more aggressive pick and roll defenses that we saw in the league last year, which also begs the question: hey, so what's Tina Charles doing? Is she coming back? Are they going to stick with two on the ball there? I'm curious to see what happens on that front with Connecticut. But like, if you have an aggressive defensive infrastructure with a really strong point of attack defender on top of that, and Sanaya Rivers can defend a little bit everywhere, depending on how often we again see those three on the floor together, like that feels like an easier infrastructure for Diamond to kind of slot into defensively. And if you get enough stops, force enough turnovers, you unleash Diamond in transition. Like that is where she is at her best. And so I like this for her, lower stakes environment in an infrastructure that should help her. And for the Sun, like you're doing this with, this one guarantee. Like this is the last year of the Diamond Miller contract, protected deal, but last year. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, okay, that is fine. The cost to bring her in was someone that was behind 3 or 4 other bigs on the depth chart. So it's very much like a no risk, moderately high reward kind of move. And for Dallas, again, you either add Ryan Marshall into your system and see how much of the defense we saw at USC can we unlock in some spot minutes, especially, they lost Luisa Gaisasolder during the expansion draft. We'll see what they do with the front court or not do with the front court in the draft. Like, are there some spot minutes here to we can tap into some defensive aggressiveness or more aggressive schemes with her? If not, we waive her. We have more cap space. We splurge around Paige, and we truly try to build this thing out. So I think it's a deal that made sense for both teams.
So, Nekias, if I could ask a question, is the biggest domino to a degree what Satu Sabali wants to do? Because Satu said, Phoenix, appreciate you. I'm out. Where does she land? What does that elevate? Like, obviously, going to change the Mercury, but like, hey, do we go to Toronto? Do we go to Portland? Do we go to a different team? Is Satu the piece that's going to make things shake to a degree?
I would say so. Like, it was fascinating as we got into some of the core decisions. There was a lot of angst among Aces fans. It was like, hey, what do you mean there was no core designation used on Jackie Young? And you go to Phoenix, it's like, hey, what do you mean there was no core designation used on Alyssa Thomas or Satu Sabali? And then once you get one early reporting that, hey, Satu might not be there, it's like, well, hold on. And then Satu posts the the Instagram post, and it's like, oh, she's actually just not going to be there. Why did y'all not core Satu Sabali? Because the way that you acquired Satu Sabali was because the Dallas Wings knew she was leaving and they cored her so they could trade her. Why did you not do that? So I'm curious, like, how that portion broke out. But yeah, like, I am fascinated. I mean, I think her sister is in Toronto. There was a Drake song as part of the IG post with her detailing her goodbye. And so, like, if you want to read tea leaves, like, that seems to be the front runner at the very least, I would assume. But a lot of different spaces for no shot. A lot of different places that Satu could slide in. Like, again, Toronto makes sense. Portland makes sense if she just wants to be a number one somewhere. A question that I would toss your way, Steve. How would you feel about Satu in Golden State? Because that's the landing spot that's kind of had me in a headlock.
It's an interesting concept because Golden State essentially did what they were supposed to do as far as we've built something, we're pretty good, come hang with us. And it's like, well, got a lot of options. So Satu would be the type of player that would take them over the top with her ability, obviously defensively. I think underrated defender to a degree at sometimes, but like, okay, I can elevate us in the half court. We can do a lot of different things with what I can do. You can move me around the board. It'd probably be the most intriguing location, but who knows what Satu wants to do? I just know whatever team she lands on, probably going to feel a lot better about their prospects.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. So we'll see what happens with Satu. We'll see what happens with Skylar Diggins. Like, quiet as kept. Do we need to keep an eye on Melissa Thomas?
I am intrigued by the Mercury. They built a lot up, and Satu being like, yeah, that was cool, I'm out. Doesn't, like, not in a messy way, but it's like, well, that was a big piece of what you had with this big three. Can you replicate that? Or again, the Mercury hit on the margins last year. Do we do that? Empower Alyssa Thomas, empower Ka, and just try and become a stronger team overall.
Mm-hmm. Alyssa Thomas just gives you a really high floor for assuming she's healthy. So they may not miss Satu as much in the regular season, depending on how they build this out. Postseason, in terms of the ceiling, that we'll just have to see how they build that out. In terms of actual confirmed news right now, quick shout out to Jackie Young and the Las Vegas Aces. Jackie Young signing a 1-year deal at the regular max, so a little under $1.2 million. She is officially the first $1 million player in WNBA history. So salute to her. Kirsten Bell also re-signing with the Aces, signing her restricted qualifying offer at the minimum. So Kirsten Bell back, Jackie Young back. I would assume we are going to get Asia Wilson and Chelsea Gray announcements over the next few days returning, but we will see what happens there and what the salary figures look like on that front. To the New York Liberty, Steve, on the rumor mill, they've been linked to Atlanta Smith, one of the teams that has checked in on the availability of Atlanta Smith. That would be fascinating to add that level of defender to that kind of infrastructure. So we'll see what happens there. But in terms of official news, Maria Johannes expected to be back with the New York Liberty. I would imagine that makes you happy. Okay. Is that what we're on? Oh, dear. So as we get into some of the core designations that were announced on Monday and then later came through the pipeline on Tuesday, Ariel Atkins, as mentioned, going to be signed and traded to the Los Angeles Sparks, so no max money for her. And in general, with the core designation, like, you do have to sign that to get the max money. These things can be negotiated down for a multi-year deal, less money, etc. But your core candidates, Bridget Carlton with the Portland Fire, Nafisa Collier in Minnesota, Alicia Gray in Atlanta, Kelsey Plum with the Sparks, Sabrina Ionescu with the Liberty, Marina Mabry with the Toronto Tempo, Ezzy Matt-Magor was the core destination choice for the Seattle Storm, Kelsey Mitchell with the Fever, and Arike Ogunbowale with the Dallas Wings. And in terms of reserved qualifying offers that have been accepted, some notable names there from both the expansion teams. For the Fire, Emily Inksler, Chloe Bibby, Maya Caldwell. For the Tempo, Lexi Hale, Nicolita Milic, Lee Yuru, a big name figuratively and literally with the Dallas Wings as well, and a few others that are under contract now. So we're starting to see the rosters fill out a little bit, but this is setting the stage for contracts being able to be officially signed on Saturday. And just a lot of big names still out there, Steve. I think last free throw question I have for you. Who's an underrated free agent name that you're interested in keeping track of? May not be a star level name, but someone that could legit swing something for a team with where they sign.
Who's not? What name's not underrated? Everyone's a free agent. What you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, man. Everyone can get a deal. Let's go.
That's crazy. To answer my own question, I'm curious to see, especially in light of recent moves, what does Elizabeth Williams do? Is she back in Chicago, or does she take her defense and screening elsewhere? Could be a stealth starting quality big that could also cycle in as like sixth woman in a role on the Contenders. I'm curious to see what happens with Elizabeth Williams. We're talking non-All-Stars. There we go. There we have it. And thank you for listening to and or watching this episode of The Dunker Spot. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We are on Apple, Spotify, RIP Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us. Subscribe to the Yahoo NBA YouTube channel and the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel if you have not already. You can follow me on socials at Nekias NBA. You can follow Steve on socials at SteveJones20. And with that, we got a fun weekend ahead. NBA basketball. We got the W draft coming up. We got more free agency stuff. We got a lot to react to next week. Enjoy your weekend, friends.